we have been going through the parable about the 10 virgins. There's so many teachings on that, especially by the Christian preachers and teachers. We know whatever it may be, I have found out that we need to, number one, have the guidance of the daddy and son, Yahuwah, and his son, Yahushua. And develop a mindset, a Jewish mindset. Definitely not the Western mindset. No. In order that we can go deep into the Word. So, reading from Matthew 25, then the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. He starts with the kingdom of heaven. The message, the only message Yahushua brought was the kingdom, the coming kingdom which is going to be established on the earth in Israel, in the city of Jerusalem. And we are admonished to enter the kingdom according to the instructions laid down by Yahushua. That was teaching all the way through. And even after the death and resurrection, he started to speak about the kingdom. So he is comparing the kingdom, the coming kingdom of Elohim, to 10 virgins or 10 people who have been actually, they were the 10 virgins or 10 people or whatever it may be. This people are waiting for the return of the bridegroom, who is Yahushua the Messiah. But immediately he says, this parable is taught by Yahushua, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. We don't need to go through all the traditional the wedding and what they do, how they meet the bridegroom. We don't need all that. There are very many specific important things we need to focus on. Why the lamp? The lamp. Yeshua, while speaking this, surely he knows that the wisdom that was given to Solomon, when he was asked by God the Father, he asked for wisdom, and God gave him. And in that, Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching is light. Very simple, easy to follow. So what did they take? Commandment is a lamp, and the teaching, the Torah, is light. And later on, actually before Solomon, I have to finish it, teaching is light and continues, reproofs for discipline are the way of life. So I explained over here, the lamp is the commandment, the light is the Torah, teaching, reproofs for discipline from the Torah are the way of life. The way of life. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 7. Yahushua speaking over here. Jesus, chapter 7, verse 13. Enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is broad, and leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small, and the way is narrow, leads to life. Two ways, two gates. The narrow gate and the wide gate. And we have a broad way and narrow way leads to life. Comparing 7:13, we read 14 also. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that it leads to life, and there are few who find it. So let's compare over here. The commandment is a lamp, the teaching is light. So obviously we see the narrow way and the narrow gate are the way of the commandment and the Torah, the teaching. It calls for obedience that leads to life. Reproofs through the Torah, the teaching, in the way of life. With all kinds of teachings that are already given out by the West. The people have understood that the commandments are done away with. And we are in the new covenant, and we are under grace, we are not under law, and there are still debates by Christians going on today, whether under grace or under commandment is all demonic and lack of knowledge. and guidance from Yahuwah and his son, Yahushua. The lamp is the commandment, the light is the Torah, instructions. Truth, testimonies, statutes, commandments, judgments. So all the 10 took the lamp, meaning they had the commandments, they had the instructions, the Torah, the light. One group gave heed, obeyed the commandments and the Torah instructions, and they're called wise. And those who did not obey the commandments and the instructions of God, they're called foolish people. Now, why I say this? It's like both are having Bibles, both wrote the Bibles. One group obeyed the instructions and the commandments of the wise people, and the others did not obey and gave themselves to the instructions of God. How do we know this? Well, in the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 21, not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, will enter the kingdom of God. Kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God is the same thing. But he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. The will of the Father is the commandments and the Torah. The commandments and the instructions called the lamp and the light. The lamp is the commandment, the light is the instructions, the Torah. Most of the time, the people of the West and the teachers and preachers kind of developed an unknown opposition when they hear the word law. Actually, it should have been translated Torah. The Torah contains the commandments also, but the mainly is translated instructions for life, or the manual of operations for human life in the Bible. God's manual. So he says, not everyone who says to him, is very clear from verse 21, who will enter the kingdom. Yahushua says, those people who will obey the will of the Father will enter the kingdom. It's about going into the coming kingdom, which we have to choose now in this life. Many do not know. Many, because of the false teachings, they're waiting to go to heaven. Very sad. And verse 22, many will say to me on that day, Master, Master, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. The word lawlessness comes from the Greek word anomia, breaking the law. Here are people who knew about the commandments and the Torah, and still they did not obey. They broke it, but still they were involved in some kingdom work. They prophesied in his name, actually. They spoke the word. They were casting demons in his name. And then did many miracles in his name. But then one thing they did not do is to obey the commandments and the Torah. So, hear the words of Yahushua, I never knew you. Get away from me. Leave me who practice lawlessness. Now, going back to Matthew 25, the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins who took their lamps, commandments, and the Torah. The commandment is the lamp, the light is the Torah. Instructions. And they went to meet the bridegroom. And immediately Yeshua says in the parable, 5 are foolish, 5 prudent. The foolish people, after returning from buying oil, the door was shut. What did they hear? When they came back, they heard the words which they would not been happy to hear those words. Verse 12, but he answered, truly, oh my goodness, he adds, truly. They could have just said, I do not know you. But he said, truly, I say to you, I do not know you. For comparing this answer with the answer he gave to those people who are lawbreakers in chapter 7 of Matthew. We can come to the conclusion the foolish virgins did not obey the commandments or follow the instructions. In order to be accepted by the bridegroom, they were practicing lawlessness. It is like the formal namesake professing Christians who heard probably from the preachers of the West that we don't need to keep the law. We are not under the law. We are under grace. We are in a different covenant. The laws are for the Jewish people, not for us. We are passed from the old covenant to the new. This is going on today. Today. Only those people who obey God the Father, His commandments, and Yahushua according to their words, they love them. Love God the Father and the Son of God. Check it up. Check out how these false teachers have produced many millions of false Christians whom Yahushua is calling here is a type foolish people, fools, under the deception of false teaching. God bless you.